With us now is Gracie Willis. She is an attorney with the National Immigration Project. She represents a 2-year-old U.S.-born child removed with her mother to Honduras. Gracie, it's always a pleasure to see you. I thank you for being back with us this week. I asked you to keep us updated on this case. You're kind enough to come back. What is the latest on that case? Where is that 2-year-old American-born child right now?
Thank you so much, Jose. We are learning more and more every day about what these mothers went through when they were in ICE detention, because we're now able to have contact with the mothers in Honduras. And what's becoming increasingly clear is that ICE was misleading these mothers at every step of the way. What DHS is now presenting as a choice was actually a trap. These mothers had no options presented to them. They had no due process. There was no justice. What we know is that these mothers didn't willingly present their children or their passports for deportation. There was a series of misleading information that ICE was giving these mothers. For one mother, they told her that she was coming in for a family visit, for a wellness check of her children. For the other, they told her that she was coming in to have her ankle monitor serviced. In both situations, the mothers were asked to present the passports just so that ICE could make copies of them. And then they didn't see those passports again until they were in Honduras. So neither of these mothers presented willingly their children or their passports, knowing that it would lead to their deportation. ICE told them, you will be deported with your children. There were no options presented to them.
So Gracie, these were not cases that had already been adjudicated and found to have deportation orders. They were still in the process?
For both of these mothers, there were circumstances beyond their control that led to an inability to appear at one single immigration court hearing. Neither had had their hearing heard, their cases heard before an immigration judge. And that puts them in a position of having an opportunity to present those extraordinary circumstances outside of their control to a judge through a filing. And there were attorneys ready, willing, and able to work on those filings, complete those filings, and get them in front of an immigration judge, but were unable to ultimately because the mothers were held in isolation, incommunicado, and unable to communicate with those lawyers.
So where is that child right now, and what are the efforts underway, or are there any efforts underway to bring that child back to the country where he was born?
The families are in Honduras, where they were deported on Friday. The families are still focusing on the initial health and safety issues for the families there and are trying to work through the really complicated next steps. It's a different decision, should a child stay versus should a child come back. These families have been through unimaginable trauma and are still working through what the next steps for these children will be. And especially the primary focus is making sure that that 4-year-old has access to medication and treatment for his cancer.
And has that been supplied to that child?
I believe the family is still working to make sure that that's available. Certainly, the immigration authorities didn't make any effort to ensure that the child had the medication for that deportation flight.
Do you know if the fathers of these U.S.-born children have been in contact with either the mothers or legal officials or even somebody in the Honduran government to see what help they need to be getting right now as this process is cleared up?
The fathers and mothers have been in touch and are trying to figure out what those next steps are.
Gracie, what is it that you have to say to people that may be watching and that may live in a, for example, a mixed immigration status household where their parents or their loved ones are going through a process right now and may have a grillete, have the ankle bracelet, and are facing, I don't know, a meeting coming up? What do you say to those people?
What we're seeing with these two families and other situations that have come to light over the last several days is that ICE is engaging in increasing incursion into the private family lives of families, these decisions that families should be making together. There's no right or wrong decision about what to do with a child and what decision a family should make in these really challenging circumstances. But what's key and most important is that the family gets to make that decision. ICE has policies around the family being able to make these decisions, but doesn't appear to be following those policies. In multiple cases, we're seeing the wishes of the families just ignored by ICE. And what's critical is that we make it clear that we're not going to tolerate that. It's a basic moral foundational principle that families should be able to decide what's in the best interest of their children. And that's what we're trying to ensure happens.
Yeah, and Gracie, I mean, these mothers say that they really did not know. They were not given the basic courtesy of at least having the time to process what to do with their children. Is that what they say?
That's correct. They were never presented with, would you like this option or that option? They were never presented with, would you like to speak to another caregiver available for your children? They were told, your children will be deported with you. And even if they were offered a choice, it's not a willing and voluntary choice if made under duress, in isolation, unable to speak with anybody, a caregiver, an attorney, anybody. Those aren't circumstances that anybody could be expected to make a really, really tough decision.
Gracie, let's continue this conversation, okay? Tomorrow,
Thank you so much.
Friday, we need to stay on this, okay? I
Will do.
appreciate it. Thanks.